If you stand on the platform of Tokyo Station, watching the Shinkansen glide to a halt, you are witnessing something that transcends mere transportation. It is a ballet of industrial precision. The train arrives, and the doors open within seconds of the scheduled time. Cleaning crews, operating with the discipline of a pit crew, refresh the cabin in exactly 7 minutes. The train departs, and as it accelerates out of the city, it enters a network where the margin for error is effectively zero. In the fiscal year 2023, the Tokaido Shinkansen, the artery connecting Japan's two largest metropolises, carried 161 million passengers. And across tens of thousands of trips, through rain, snow, and earthquakes, the average delay per train was 1.6 minutes. It is a system so perfect, so reliable, and so financially robust that it seems like the obvious blueprint for the rest of the world. It operates as a single biological organism, where the tracks, the trains, the signals, the stations, and the immense real estate developments surrounding them are controlled by a single brain. This model, known in economics as vertical integration, allows companies like JR Central to manage their assets with dictatorial precision. But if you were to take this blueprint to Brussels, to the headquarters of the European Union, and propose it as the future of European rail, you would not be met with applause. You would be met with a lawsuit. To the policymakers of the EU, the Japanese model is not a pinnacle of reliability. It is a crime. It is a regulatory failure. It is a dangerous monopoly that violates the core tenets of the single European railway area. Over the last 20 years, the European Union has systematically enforced a legal framework known as unbundling. It is a policy that mandates the surgical separation of the track owner from the train operator. By prioritizing market competition over operational coordination, the EU has made the Japanese model of seamless integration legally impossible on European soil. Any entity attempting to operate under the unified JR model today would face immediate litigation under the Fourth Railway Package, a massive raft of legislation adopted in 2016 that mandated the full liberalization of domestic passenger markets by December 2020. To understand why the world's two most advanced rail networks have diverged so violently, we have to look at the machinery, the money, and the philosophy behind them. We have to understand why Japan chose perfection, why Europe chose choice, and why that decision ensures that Europe can never, ever, copy the world's most successful rail system, even if it wanted to. This is the story of the one brain versus the referee. To analyze why the Japanese model is incompatible with European law, one must first understand the structural superiority of vertical integration in a high-density rail environment. In Japan, the one-brain model means that a single corporate entity possesses total sovereignty over every component of the rail journey. When JR Central operates the Shinkansen, it is a dictator in the technical sense. It owns the rails, it maintains the signals, it builds the stations, it designs the rolling stock, it manages the scheduling. This total control eliminates the transaction costs that plague European operators. In Europe, an operator must negotiate every second of track time with a third-party referee. In Japan, there is no negotiation. There is only execution. The technical core of this integration is the computer-aided traffic control system, or COMTRAC, which has governed the Tokaido Shinkansen since 1972. In a vertically integrated system, the signaling software is not a neutral platform designed to accommodate multiple users with different needs. It is a proprietary tool of the operator. If a train is 30 seconds late due to a passenger boarding issue in Kyoto, the unified system instantly recalculates the signal intervals for every other train on the line. Because the signal engineers and the train drivers work for the same organization, there is no contractual dispute over delay attribution. There is no arguing over whose fault it was. The problem is simply solved. Contrast this with the German network. Deutsche Bahn reported that in 2024, only 62.5% of its long-distance trains were punctual. This failure rate is often attributed to the friction of unbundled management, where the infrastructure manager and the operator are separate entities with conflicting priorities. In Japan, a departure is typically deemed on time if it occurs within 1 minute of the scheduled time. Most trains arrive within seconds of their appointed time. This is a level of precision that requires the tracks to be cleared of all distractions. Vertical integration allows JR Central to enforce a pure environment on the Tokaido Shinkansen, No freight trains are allowed. No slower regional trains are permitted. The tracks are dedicated, exclusive, and pristine. The physical separation of freight and passenger lines is a luxury afforded by the profitability of the integrated model. Because the JR companies control the entire value chain, they can afford to build and maintain dedicated tracks that are never shared with slower-moving freight. In the European referee model, the tracks are viewed as common infrastructure. High-speed trains must frequently navigate around slow regional services and heavy freight, leading to the knock-on effect, where a minor disruption in a cargo slot cascades into a major delay for hundreds of passengers. The Japanese commitment to punctuality is not merely a cultural trait, it is a direct byproduct of this unified structure. But the integration goes deeper than just the tracks. It extends to the people. Beyond the digital brain of Comtrack, the Japanese model relies on a human-centric coordination system called Shinkansen, or pointing and calling. This technique involves workers physically pointing at signals and verbally stating their status. This multi-sensory engagement reduces human error by engaging the brain more actively than passive observation. In a vertically integrated firm, this culture is pervasive and uniform. Every worker, from the maintenance crew to the station attendant, belongs to the same corporate culture and follows the same safety protocols. In Europe, where station services might be outsourced to one firm, cleaning to another, and track maintenance to a third, maintaining a unified safety culture across organizational boundaries is a profound management challenge. In Japan, everyone wears the same jersey. In Europe, everyone is playing for a different team. The current Japanese model was born out of a crisis that closely mirrors the problems Europe currently faces. It is easy to look at Japan today and assume it has always been this efficient, but from 1949 to 1987, Japanese rail was dominated by the state-owned Japanese National Railways, or JNR. JNR was a bureaucratic giant. It suffered from chronic overstaffing, political interference, and a lack of innovation. In 1964, despite the success of the first Shinkansen, JNR posted its first annual loss. By the mid-1980s, the company was hemorrhaging trillions of yen in debt. It reached a peak of 37 trillion yen, a number comparable to the national debt of entire countries. Rail's share of total passenger traffic had cratered from over 50% to the mid-20s. The system was dying. The solution was privatization. But importantly, the privatization of JNR in 1987 was a process of regional vertical integration rather than the horizontal unbundling favored by the EU. JNR was split into 9 entities, including 6 regional passenger companies and 1 nationwide freight company. The logic was to create one-brain entities that could specialize in the unique traffic patterns of their specific regions. JR East was assigned the Tokyo commuter market, while JR Central took the Tokyo-Osaka high-speed corridor. This division allowed the new JR companies to eliminate redundant bureaucratic layers and tailor their operations to local demand. The results were immediate. Prior to privatization, there was 1 employee for every 311,000 miles traveled by passengers. After privatization, this figure surged to 897,000 miles per employee. That indicates a massive, almost unbelievable surge in labor productivity. Financially, the turnaround was just as stark. The revenue-to-cost ratio jumped from 0.771 to 1.167. A system that was generating chronic losses transformed into one generating operating profits. Major accidents were reduced by 50%. Crucially, the Japanese government did not enforce open access during this privatization. They recognized that for the system to work as a Swiss watch, each regional company needed total control over its essential facility, the tracks. While Japanese rail companies can technically close unprofitable lines, the approval process is so rigorous that they instead use the immense profits from their vertically integrated high-traffic lines to cross-subsidize remote regional services. This is a practice that would be heavily scrutinized or outright illegal under EU cross-subsidization laws, but in Japan, it keeps the country moving. While Japan was doubling down on vertical integration, the European Union was moving in the complete opposite direction. The EU's rail philosophy is driven by the referee model. This view treats the rail network as a public utility, similar to a highway, where no single company should be allowed to dominate both the road and the vehicles. The European Commission argues that vertical integration creates an inherent conflict of interest. If a company like the French SNCF owns the tracks and also runs the trains, it has every incentive to block competitors like Italo or Deutsche Bahn from using its lines. It has every incentive to charge them higher fees to protect its own market share. It is an antitrust nightmare. To solve this, the EU enforces unbundling. This legal requirement, initiated by Directive 91/440/EEC and cemented by the Fourth Railway Package, forces countries to separate their rail infrastructure into distinct entities. Under the EU model, the rail sector is split into three distinct actors. First, there is the infrastructure manager, or IM. This is the neutral referee that owns and maintains the tracks and signals. Examples include Network Rail in the UK or SNCF Réseau in France. They do not run trains, they merely sell slots to operators. Second, there is the Railway Undertaking, or RU. This is the commercial player that runs the trains and pays a toll, a track access charge, to the infrastructure manager. Examples include Trenitalia or private companies like Italo. Third, there is the regulatory body. This is an independent agency that ensures the IM provides non-discriminatory access to all operators. The differences in institutional logic are profound. The Japanese one-brain model prioritizes operational perfection and coordination. The track is owned by the train company. Access rights are restricted to the owner. The incentive structure is based on integrated profit from trains and land. The economic logic is based on economies of coordination. The European referee model prioritizes market competition and choice. The track is owned by a neutral third party. Access rights are open to all qualified bidders. The incentive structure is segmented, based on user fees only. The economic logic is based on economies of competition. The EU's legal justification for this split rests on the essential facility doctrine. In competition law, an essential facility is a resource that cannot be reasonably duplicated by a competitor and is necessary for providing a service. Because building a second parallel high-speed rail line across France is economically impossible, the existing tracks are deemed an essential facility. European law mandates that the owner of such a facility must provide non-discriminatory open access to all qualified shippers. In Japan, JR Central owns the Tokaido Shinkansen tracks and can legally refuse to let a competitor use them. In Europe, if JR Central tried to build a Shinkansen line between Berlin and Munich, it would be forced by law to let its enemies, competitors like Flixtrain or SNCF, use those same tracks for a regulated fee. This requirement destroys the one-brain logic of scheduling and maintenance, as the track owner can no longer optimize the network for its own trains alone. The legal transformation of European rail reached its zenith in 2016 with the adoption of the Fourth Railway Package. This was not a mere suggestion. It was a binding set of 6 legislative texts designed to complete the single European railway area. The package was divided into 2 pillars: the technical pillar and the market, or governance pillar. The market pillar, specifically Directive 2016/2370, dealt a final blow to the integrated model. It mandated that member states must open their domestic passenger rail markets to competition by December 2020 for commercial services and by December 2023 for public service contracts. Critically, the law introduced the Compliance Verification Clause. This clause allows the European Commission to audit vertically integrated holding companies to ensure that strict Chinese walls are in place. If a company like Deutsche Bahn or SNCF cannot prove that its infrastructure manager is functionally, financially, and operationally independent from its train operation branch, that company can be banned from operating in other EU member states. The mandated Chinese walls include legal separation, where the IM and the RU must be distinct legal entities with separate management boards. They include financial separation, ensuring funds allocated for infrastructure cannot be diverted to provide a competitive advantage to the incumbent operator. And they include operational separation, ensuring decision-making regarding path allocation and track access charges is entirely independent. While the market pillar focused on competition, the technical pillar aimed to dismantle the 11,000 national rules that hindered cross-border travel. Historically, An Italian train could not simply drive into France because it lacked the correct safety certificates for the French signaling system. The fourth railway package shifted the authority to issue vehicle authorizations and safety certificates from national agencies to the European Union Agency for Railways, ERA. The European Commission estimated that this centralization would achieve a 20% reduction in the time to market for new railway undertakings and a 20% reduction in the cost and duration of rolling stock authorization. They projected total savings for companies of €500 million by 2025. By making it cheaper and easier for a foreign train to enter a new market, the EU effectively lowered the walls that protected national monopolies. However, in doing so, they also made it impossible for any country to maintain the kind of closed, proprietary signaling and track systems that allow the Japanese Shinkansen to operate with such singular focus. The primary cool outcome of the fourth railway package's unbundling mandate is the explosion of high-speed rail competition. To see this in action, we look at the route between Milan and Paris. For decades, this route was an SNCF monopoly, characterized by high fares and stagnant service. In December 2021, Trenitalia leveraged the new open access laws to launch its own Frecciarossa 1000 service on the route, competing head-on with the French TGV. The results were a textbook example of the benefits of the European model. Trenitalia entered the market with weekday fares starting at just €29, forcing SNCF to respond with more competitive pricing. Passenger numbers on the route surged, increasing by 58% after the Frecciarossa launch in 2022. Average fares on the Paris-Lyon line dropped by approximately 10%, while similar liberalization in Spain saw prices plummet by nearly 40%. In its first 3 years, Trenitalia carried over 3 million passengers, with a satisfaction rate of 98%. This competition created a modal shift from air and road to rail. However, it also highlighted the logistical complexity of the referee model. Because the tracks between Turin and Lyon are old and shared with other services, the trip still takes nearly 7 hours, a journey that would be less than 4 hours if the high-speed line were fully integrated and dedicated. Furthermore, a landslide in the Maurienne Valley in August 2023 suspended the service for over a year, demonstrating the vulnerability of unbundled systems where the operator has no direct control over the timeline of infrastructure repairs. The most profound, and perhaps most damaging, consequence of European unbundling is the destruction of the rail profit engine. In Japan, rail companies are not merely transport providers. They are some of the world's most successful real estate developers and retail managers. This is known as the Ekinaka business model, which literally translates to inside the station. Japanese railways make a significant portion of their money by owning and developing the land above and inside their stations. Because the one brain owns the trains, it is incentivized to run more frequent services, specifically to dump shoppers into its own department stores and malls. In Japan, a station is not a place where you wait for a train. It is a shopping destination where the train is the delivery mechanism for customers. In the fiscal year 2024, JR East reported that non-transportation segments, retail, real estate, and hotels, accounted for a massive portion of its operating revenue. Transportation accounted for 1,853.6 billion yen, or about 67.9% of the total. But retail and services brought in 569.4 billion yen, and real estate and hotels brought in another 486.2 billion yen. Combined with other services, non-transportation revenue made up over 30% of the pie. This diversified revenue stream allows JR East to maintain its infrastructure and invest in new technology without heavy reliance on government subsidies. In contrast, European rail systems are largely dependent on the public purse. Because the EU mandates the separation of the track owner from the operator, this integrated profit loop is broken. In the European referee model, the incentives are split between two different pockets. This creates what economists call the incentive gap. First, there is the track owner's dilemma. If the infrastructure manager, like SNCF Réseau, improves a station to attract more shoppers, the additional profit might be captured by a third-party private developer or a competing train operator that brings more passengers. The IM has no way to directly capture the value of the passengers its tracks deliver to the platform. Then, there is the train operator's dilemma. If a train operator, like Trenitalia, invests in marketing a destination to increase traffic, it doesn't own the station land or the malls. It cannot capture the retail value created by the shoppers it delivers. It only makes money from the ticket sale. This decoupling means that in Europe, station developments are often austere and utilitarian. While some major hubs like London King's Cross or Berlin Hauptbahnhof have commercial areas, they are managed as separate real estate ventures, not as a unified organism designed to maximize rail utility. According to the World Bank, European rail operators frequently suffer from a policy incentive gap that prevents them from matching the level of service-oriented development seen in Japan. The result of this institutional difference is reflected in the commercial revenue per passenger. Japanese stations are significantly more profitable than European ones because the train company is also the shopkeeper. JR East's Ekinaka business generates roughly $2.5 billion annually. Contrast this with DB Station and Service AG in Germany, which generates about $460 million in rental revenue. Even Network Rail Property in the UK, with its $800 million revenue, pales in comparison when adjusted for scale and integration. While JR East generates billions in retail sales from its 1,657 stations, the 5,400 stations managed by Deutsche Bahn generate a mere fraction of that amount. By outlawing the unified ownership of land, track and train, the EU has institutionalized a system that relies on tax subsidies rather than shopping malls. The divergence between the two models is also deeply embedded in the signaling technology. Japan's vertical integration allowed for the development of proprietary signaling systems optimized for a single type of train. The Tokaido Shinkansen uses ATCNS, or Automatic Train Control New System. This system was developed purely for one singular network. Because JR Central knows exactly which trains will run on its tracks, ATCNS is coarse and limited, but extremely cheap and effective for high-speed synchronization. It allows Shinkansen trains to follow each other at intervals of just 3 minutes with absolute safety. Europe, however, needed a system that could facilitate open access across multiple countries and multiple brands of trains. This led to the creation of the European Train Control System, or ETCS. ETCS is designed to be one system to rule them all. It is capable of handling freight, regional, and high-speed rail simultaneously. This makes it a total powerhouse in terms of capability, but it is also vastly more expensive and complex than the Japanese alternative. Because European tracks must accommodate enemies, competitors, the signaling system must be a set of open specifications that any manufacturer like Siemens or Alstom can build for. The cost of this interoperability is a significant barrier to the Japanese miracle. To implement a Japanese-style synchronized dance in Europe, every operator would need to agree on a proprietary signaling brain. Such a move would be viewed by the European Commission as a violation of the technical pillar of the Fourth Railway Package. As long as the system must remain open, it can never reach the closed-loop efficiency of the JR Group. The choice between the Japanese and European models is ultimately a philosophical one. There is no correct way to run a railway. There is only a choice between two different sets of trade-offs. Europe has chosen choice. The EU believes that the greatest benefit to the citizen comes from a vibrant, competitive market where multiple train companies, airlines and bus operators fight for every ticket. They are willing to accept that their trains might never be as punctual as Japan's. They are willing to accept that their stations might never be as profitable. They accept these trade-offs in exchange for a system that puts downward pressure on prices through competition. The Milan-Paris route proves that this model works for the consumer's wallet, even if it creates a coordination nightmare for the engineer. Japan has chosen perfection. They have accepted a regional monopoly in exchange for a system that works with the precision of a Swiss watch. They have prioritized the coordination of the entire organism over the competition of its parts. They have accepted that you cannot have a synchronized dance if every dancer is working for a different boss, following a different script, and arguing over who gets to use the floor. The Japanese model is dictatorial, but it delivers a level of reliability that is unmatched in human history. It is a system designed for a society that values group harmony and technical excellence. The European model is democratic, designed for a society that values transparency, fairness, and the right to choose.